Breaking news this week, President Biden has signed one of his campaign promises, the $1.9 trillion stimulus package this week, with $1,400 stimulus checks already arriving at Americans' bank accounts. 1 year after lockdown began for so many Americans, the CDC has released promising new guidelines for those who are vaccinated. The trial of Derek Chauvin, the officer who kneeled on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, killing him, has begun with jury selection already underway. There are new allegations against Governor Andrew Cuomo this week, with a total of 6 women coming forward, and new calls for him to resign from Senator Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Prince Harry and Meghan dropped some bombshells in their interview with Oprah, alleging that there were concerns over how dark the baby Archie's skin color would be. There's also a lot of news overseas to get to, and a major storm that will be hitting Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska in the coming days.
This is EWS Weekly News.
Good morning, and it's great to have you with us at the end of another wild week. There was a lot of breaking news to get to, from the trial of Derek Chauvin to the new CDC guidelines for those who are vaccinated, and our team is here to carefully guide you through it all. But we begin today with the breaking news regarding Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus package. It was approved by the House of Representatives and signed by Biden on Thursday, with some Americans already receiving their stimulus checks. EWS's business correspondent Dylan Canfield has the details on the stimulus bill.
In a vote of 210 to 211, the House of Representatives approves President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief stimulus package. The final plan, which has spent weeks being debated in Congress, includes direct payments for unemployed and low-income individuals, allocations for the vaccination effort, and relief for schools, small businesses, and local and state governments. The bill had absolutely no support from Republicans, having all of its passing votes come from the House Democrats. Concerns surrounding inflation have arisen, as generally causing an influx of capital into an economy causes the value of the currency to depreciate. However, White House economists aren't overly concerned with inflation, as the nearly $2 trillion will trickle its way slowly into the economy, as opposed to the sudden increase in money the plan appears to propose. Max?
And while Congress was divided on the bill, new polling shows that over 70% of Americans support the American Rescue Plan. Thank you, Dylan. We move on to the trial of Derek Chauvin, the officer accused of killing George Floyd after kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which is now underway. EWS's national correspondent, Abby Cowan, reports.
George Floyd's death led to a global uproar of protests against racism and police brutality, and many are calling for the police to be held accountable. The former Minneapolis police officer, Derek Chauvin, who kneeled on Floyd's neck killing him, is being brought to trial. He has pleaded not guilty to second-degree unintentional murder and manslaughter charges. The judge has also reinstated a third-degree murder charge, allowing the trial to move forward. The jury selection process began on Tuesday, and 4 male and 1 female juror have been selected so far. The selection process will continue until 12 jurors and 2 alternates have been selected. As always, we will keep you updated on this historic trial. Max?
And there was late reporting tonight that the city of Minneapolis has agreed to a $27 million settlement to the family of George Floyd over his death. Thank you, Abby. 1 year after the pandemic began, there was some promise for the future. New CDC guidance regarding those who are fully vaccinated. Grandparents will have the chance to hug their grandkids. Many haven't in over a year, barring that their grandchildren are low risk. EWS's Ethan Canfield has the details on the CDC report.
On March 8th, the CDC released guidelines on activities for fully vaccinated individuals. Those who have been fully vaccinated are now safe to visit other vaccinated people indoors and without masks or social distancing. They can also safely visit people who are not vaccinated from just one other household indoors and without masks if these people are deemed low risk. Lastly, according to the CDC, if you are vaccinated, you do not need to quarantine and get tested after coming in contact with someone who has COVID-19 if you do not experience any symptoms of the virus. Max, back to you.
Ethan Canfield with that new CDC guidance. Thank you, Ethan. Well, there has been a lot of news at home. There's also a lot of news around the globe. For that, we turn to our international correspondent, Vicky Kai.
Last Wednesday, the Ain al-Assad airbase in the Iraqi desert was attacked by rockets, killing a U.S. contractor. Iranian-backed militias are likely behind this attack, which is the latest in a series of back-and-forth aggressions between Iranian militias and the U.S. This attack comes just over a year after a similar attack at the same airbase, which occurred as a part of Iran's Operation Martyr Soleimani and almost brought the two nations to war. The number of migrant children in custody along the U.S.-Mexico border has tripled in the past 2 weeks to 3,250. The new surge of migrants comes as increased pressure is being put on President Joe Biden's administration to loosen immigration policies and regulations put in place during the Trump administration. In mid-February, Biden and congressional Democrats introduced a bill that would create an 8-year path to citizenship for most of the country's 11 million undocumented immigrants. In other news, thousands have signed on to a petition by human rights groups demanding that the Chief Justice of India's Supreme Court, Sharad Arvind Bobde, resign after controversy over his inappropriate comments during a hearing for an accused rapist. And Iceland experienced over 18,000 mild to moderate-sized earthquakes just the last week alone, raising concerns that a major volcanic eruption is imminent. The eruption, should the concerns prove true, is predicted to occur in either the Sund-Nukuvirarod or the Fagradalsfjall volcanoes in the Thwainskeldarfrun lava field less than 20 kilometers from the Reykjavik metro area, home to nearly 2/3 of the country's population. That's our weekly international news rundown. Max?
Vicky Kai, thank you. We continue with the weather events that you might have missed. Here's EWS's weather correspondent, Phoebe Cosgrove.
A major snowstorm is on the move, and it will severely impact parts of Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and South Dakota this weekend. Nearly 5 million people across the region are under winter storm watches, which will likely turn to warnings as the storm advances. 2 lawsuits have been filed against the local power company, blaming the utility for the extent of the damage caused last year by Oregon's Breachy Creek fire.
Thank you, Phoebe. This week, there are new allegations against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, including an allegation from one of his aides who has remained anonymous. There are now calls from New York Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer, as well as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, calling for Cuomo to resign. Last week, Cuomo apologized for, quote, acting in a way that made people uncomfortable and that it was unintentional and that he, quote, deeply apologizes. In response to the most recent allegations, Cuomo has come out and said, quote, I have never harassed anyone. I have never assaulted anyone. I have never abused anyone. And he reiterated that he will not resign. This comes as Cuomo is facing a second scandal regarding the reported undercounting of nursing home deaths in New York, and we will continue to follow and report on both scandals. Finally, we turn to Oprah's bombshell interview with Prince Harry and Meghan. EWS's Jack Paransky has the details.
Recently, in an interview with Oprah Winfrey, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry talked about their experiences with the royal family. Markle specifically talked about the royal family's violent mistreating of her, citing the family's concerns over the skin color of their child, but not naming who made these remarks. She did tell Oprah, however, that it was neither the Queen nor Prince Philip. 10 days after the interview, the palace put out a statement that the issues presented are, quote, concerning and shall be dealt with in a private, familial matter.
And Meghan made another incredible revelation in that interview, her struggle with mental health and suicidal thoughts during this time. Thank you for that report, Jack. And that's this week's edition of the EWS Weekly News. From all of us here, I'm Max Rothbecker. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you right back here next week.